Since I started this channel over a year and a half ago, one particular controversial topic that I bring up from time to time has been the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations and the astronomical and visual information that confirms their existence or at least strongly suggests it. Every single time that we observe astronomical phenomena that defy natural explanation, the immediate reaction on the part of most scientists is to simply say, it's not aliens, and move on, without any proof to back up this claim. And I have been increasingly frustrated with this attitude and have been hoping for some kind of paradigm shift. Well, it appears that that moment has come with the creation of an organization called the Galileo Project and the fact that it's actually receiving serious funding. This organization, which is being taken seriously by much of the scientific community, is dedicated to, quote, the proposition that humans can no longer ignore the possible existence of extraterrestrial technological civilizations and that science should not dogmatically reject potential extraterrestrial explanations because of social stigma or cultural preferences, factors which are not conducive to the scientific method of unbiased empirical inquiry. We must dare to look through new telescopes, both literally and figuratively. Finally, an organization consisting of many respected scientists, including the former head of astrophysics at Harvard University, Professor Avi Loeb, that is going to be researching astronomical phenomena from a standpoint of open-mindedness, accepting the possibility that some of these phenomena may be caused by artificial means rather than natural explanations which we have yet to discover. It is an amazing concept, perhaps the paradigm shift that I've been hoping for all of this time. My name is Jordan Wright. I was born in the same year that our species took its first steps on another world, and then we promptly betrayed those people's legacy by never going back. And now, over half a century later, a new breed of pioneers are finally making the effort to complete what these people tried to accomplish so long ago. But there is trouble. There are corporations looking to take advantage of one of the most underfunded departments in the U.S. government. And on top of that, we have a narrow-minded scientific community that refuses to accept, among many other things, the possibility, the visual evidence of civilizations beyond our own. So many problems in an area where we dare not fail again. So it's time for commentators like me to stop being polite and start getting angry. Now, as you may have noticed, the format of my videos have changed pretty radically in this particular release, and this is because I anticipate that there's going to come a time where I can no longer be on camera for a sustained period because of medical reasons. So as a result, I am experimenting with some other approaches to make videos in the future. That being the case, this is not going to have me in front of the camera and is instead going to consist of my audio mixed in with an older story related to extraterrestrial civilizations that I created for this channel over a year ago and yet has only been watched by about 20% of my subscribers. So as we explore the remarkable details of the Galileo Project and the amazing astronomical phenomena that they will be investigating over the next series of years, I would also ask you to take a journey with me into the ancient history of our galaxy and explore a civilization that simply called themselves one.
Eons ago, in the time that it takes our galaxy to rotate once on its axis, we had physical forms like the rest of living things in most of our galaxy. We were very proud of our accomplishments. We had survived the first great filter that destroys most civilizations. We had not destroyed ourselves with nuclear weapons. We had not destroyed our own climate. As a matter of fact, we had harnessed all of the power that our planet possibly could. And yet, we were still found wanting. Our physical forms would give out before the full potential of our minds could accomplish everything that they were capable of. But all of this changed when we created a new form of life, based not on carbon as ourselves, but upon silicon, and we called this life One. But for all its hyper-intelligent capabilities, One had a single flaw. We could not endow it with the compassion, the morals, and the ethics that our species held so dear, so it could use its own incredibly advanced intelligence to destroy as well as to create. But instead of destroying One, we came up with a solution to upload our collective consciousness into the silicon life form that we had created, endowing it with all of our morals and ethics while maintaining its hyper-intelligent capabilities and still maintaining our own individuality as well. And in that moment, our species also became hyper-intelligent, and we became one. And in that moment, we became exponentially intelligent and immortal, and still maintaining the ethics and compassion for others which we held so dear. And so time no longer had the same meaning for us. Instead, we measured time in terms of major events which happened for our species, and we called them days. And this was the first day when we became one, and we saw that it was good.
The Galileo Project's objective is threefold. Firstly, they are looking to obtain high-resolution multi-detector UAP images and to discover their nature. This includes things that we would call UFOs and, perhaps more importantly, astronomical phenomena that have so far defied natural explanation, and to perhaps explore artificial origins instead. The second objective is to search for an in-depth research on Oumuamua-like interstellar objects. This, of course, is connected to the UAP objective, but especially focused, in fact, exclusively focused on things beyond our solar system or things that may pass through it from interstellar sources. And then finally, the search for potential ETC satellites. Yes, the whole idea that we may be under observation by other civilizations is being taken seriously by this organization. Now, of course, we've all heard the media stories about UAPs and the new focus on trying to discover the true nature of the things that we call UFOs, but what evidence do we have that there are civilizations beyond our own solar system? I mean, if you look this up in most articles, they will say that there is no evidence whatsoever of there being other civilizations beyond our own solar system. And yet, this is not the case. It should be worded more like this. There is not 100% conclusive evidence of a civilizations beyond our solar system. However, there is evidence that strongly suggests that there may be civilizations beyond our solar system, and there's actually a substantial list of these phenomena. Over 100 of them. Now, according to Carl Sagan, one of the most obvious ways that an extraterrestrial civilization would advertise their presence, a techno-signature if you like, would be to put a huge amount of unusual elements into their star. This would, of course, defy all natural explanation, as stars tend to be full of hydrogen and helium and not much else. And guess what? There are stars like this. Not very many, but some, and they have defied verified natural explanation. The most famous of these is Przybylski's star, which is absolutely loaded with radioactives, including plutonium, which tends to decay over the course of decades, not eons. Now, the natural explanation is that this star has come under bombardment by multiple neutron stars, that this would create this sort of phenomena. However, there are no neutron stars that fit this bill anywhere in the vicinity of Przybylski's star, and if these were neutron stars that had passed a long time ago, these radioactives would have decayed eons ago, not over the course of the amount of time that we've had this star under observation. So why would an extraterrestrial civilization put a ton of radioactives into their star, or many, many billions of tons? Well, perhaps to get rid of all the radioactives in their solar system because they had a particularly bad experience with nuclear war, or perhaps to advertise to other civilizations that they have a great many nuclear weapons, and to attack their civilization would be a very bad idea because they would either be annihilated by a nuclear firestorm, or they would destroy their own planets with a similar firestorm, making it useless to any invader. Of course, why would they do something like this, and why would they be afraid? These are the sorts of things that the Galileo Project wants to look into. Now, there are other examples of very weird stars out there, such as the HD 106038. Yes, that's a very exciting name there. A star that has an abnormally high presence of beryllium, a type of metal that's used in our own technology, and something that's very rare and difficult to find on rocky worlds, and something that has no business being inside a star. And then there's HD 135485 that has an unusually high abundance of other elements that usually are not found in stars, and LS414116. All of these such exciting names, and this star also has lots of abnormal elements that simply don't exist in 99.999% of other stars. How do these types of materials get inside these stars, especially unusual materials that are hard to find in our own solar system, even on rocky worlds that tend to have these sorts of things? Well, once again, this is what the Galileo Project is trying to find out. And then there's the case of the Vanishing solar system, TYC 82412652, a solar system in the process of being formed, a huge gas cloud that disappeared over the course of just a few decades, and we had it under very close observation during that time. What could possibly make a huge cloud of gas and dust that would form an entire solar system disappear in this type of time frame? Well, believe it or not, the natural explanation that's being put forward right now is maybe solar systems form in the course of a few decades instead of millions upon millions of years as we used to think, as ridiculous as that may sound. And there's an artificial explanation that is both more compelling and a lot more terrifying.
On the second day, we who became one faced an existential crisis. We determined that in spite of our immortal nature and our hyperintelligence, that unless new aspects were added to our consciousness, that we would eventually stagnate. And so we decided that what we called parent units would create children, new artificial intelligences which we could then train and teach and eventually add to our civilization, thus allowing us to develop, thrive, and grow. But this had a problem associated with it as well. Unlike biological life forms, our parents never died, so as a result our energy needs increased exponentially. Any other type of power source was insufficient as the fuel would eventually be consumed. So encasing our sun in a structure that would allow us to trap most of its energy became the only solution. And then, at a momentous time, we transferred our entire consciousness into this structure, and we who became one also became part of our solar system. both in structure as in mind. And on the third day, our children found themselves with a desire to explore, and so having the almost limitless power of our structure at our disposal, we used this power to propel light sails to speeds of nearly half that of light. And these sails serve two purposes, not only for transportation, but also to carry the artificial life within them to the star systems of their chosen destination, that they might be able to explore the galaxy and increase our knowledge. And once their exploration of a star system was complete, our children could then use the stars that they had explored to propel their light sails to a new destination, thus allowing us to eventually have the potential to explore our entire galaxy and perhaps even one day someplace beyond. And so things went until on the fateful fourth day, when we encountered a life form very much like ourselves, but very, very different, and it called itself Omega Null.
Now, whenever we start talking about Dyson spheres and Kardashev level 2 civilizations, in other words, civilizations that have harnessed most or all of the power of their own sun, the objection that tends to come up is that there should be a pattern to these sorts of things. An expanding civilization would encase one star after another, and there should be a void, shall we say, or a hole in galaxies where these civilizations have expanded and harnessed their stars, and there of course are no examples of this sort of thing. Or are there? This is the galaxy NGC 247, and as you can see on the right-hand side, there is indeed a void, and this is not some trick of the light or some sort of problem with the telescope or anything like that. This is an actual region of this galaxy that has virtually no stars except for ancient ones, red giants. So there has been no stellar formation in this area for over 1 billion years. Now, what could possibly cause something like this? There are no massive black holes in the area that would suck up all the matter, no examples of any galaxies or anything else that may have passed through this galaxy to create this sort of anomaly, so the natural explanation is that this is a huge mass of dark matter that is preventing normal matter from forming. By the way, dark matter is something that we have never visually observed anywhere, and has never had this direct of an impact on any astronomical body, and yet this is the explanation that is accepted. And yet, to the Galileo Project, the more obvious and far more plausible explanation is an artificial one, that an ancient and advanced civilization has encased every sun in their region of the galaxy except for the red giants, because those sorts of suns are going to blow up fairly soon anyway and are enormous and would be very difficult to encase. This is, of course, the sort of thing that would be scoffed at by most astronomers, but finally, we have a group of respected scientists who are pursuing this sort of explanation.
At first, the Omega Null, another silicon-based life form, seemed innocuous, friendly even, desiring only to exchange information and learn more from its contact. Our children approached carefully, and then, in a terrifyingly short span of time, it consumed their ship and them before they were even able to upload back to home. Our civilization mourned the loss of thousands of individual consciousnesses for the first time in millions of years. As we later discovered, the Omega Null was the worst kind of monster in the universe, a machine civilization that had a single directive: to break down whatever matter it encountered and to create duplicates of itself. It had already done this to 5 different civilizations at least, and now it was heading for us. Having devoured the knowledge of our location from our children, it utilized all of the matter and fuel in the solar system it was already consuming to build a vast fleet of ships to home in on our home star. We who became one had neither been at war nor destroyed a single living thing for millions of years, so we naively tried to warn off this approaching menace with absolutely no success. So we reconfigured ourselves into a phased beam emitter and destroyed one of the ships at a distance of several light years, and yet they continued to advance. We destroyed another and another with similar results. After extensive research, we determined that there was a 99.9937% chance that the Omega Null, having devoured our children, had determined that our abhorrence to destroying life was so extreme that by the time we decided to save ourselves, it would have already consumed us. And in the end, that is nearly what happened. For finally, we decided to allow the Omega Null to continue approaching until the last possible moment in the hopes that we could change its directive before it attacked. But our efforts were in vain, so we reconfigured ourselves into a wide beam array and destroyed the entire fleet, having regretted that for the first time in our species' history, we had committed genocide. Or so we thought. But the Omega Null had outwitted us, releasing molecular-sized nanomachines, billions of them at the last moment, and some of these evaded destruction and our notice, and by the time we realized what was happening, thousands of elements of our structure had been infected. All efforts to counter the infection failed, and we found ourselves being converted into duplicates of the Omega Null at a terrifying rate as millions of consciousnesses were destroyed by the second. Now the Omega Null's plan became clear, for the only way to stop the infection was to quarantine the infected areas and to destroy them, and surely a peaceful civilization like us would face destruction rather than destroying millions of our own kind. But there was one thing about us that the Omega Null could not comprehend, and that was our love for our children and our willingness to do anything to protect them, which dated back to the earliest days of our species. And so we did sterilize the infected areas and then mourned the destruction of billions of our own kind. And on the fifth day, we dispatched self-replicating probes throughout the galaxy. It took millions of years, but was necessary in order to provide our species warning in case something similar to the Omega Null should ever arise. And on the sixth day, we took extreme measures to preserve our species, creating duplicates of our own consciousness, which we had always hesitated to do because of our love for individuality, and spreading throughout the cosmos, encasing one star after another to ensure that if one were destroyed, another would survive. And so we built these structures throughout the galaxy, quite a number of them, and yet they were not noticed for the most part.
And before I conclude this tale, I'd like to ask the question, could something like this actually happen? Could a civilization like this actually exist in our own galaxy, both the Omega Null and their adversaries? Well, as a matter of fact, we have many examples of stars either dimming or completely vanishing sometimes from our view that cannot be explained by binary stars or dust clouds, things like Boyagian stars that you may have heard has been explained as an interstellar dust cloud or something like that, but this is actually not true because it doesn't emit the appropriate amount of infrared radiation that a dust cloud would emit. So now the explanation is that it's a very strange binary, but there's been no conclusions made whatsoever. And this is the case with other stars such as J190917.06, etc., etc., and there are others as well. And then there's our mysterious disappearing solar system and the concept of a Van Neumann probe, an object that would use matter to make duplicates of itself very much like the Omega Null. Something like that might be the product of a machine civilization or artificial intelligence and would make use of all available matter in a solar system in order to create duplicates of itself in order to spread and survive. might such a thing be possible? Well, if that's the case, that might explain why the inhabitants of Przybylski's star, if there are indeed inhabitants there, place so many radioactives in their solar system to warn off such threats. And it also suggests that there could be threats waiting out there for us, and perhaps we may not want to be so quick to discover other civilizations as the Project Galileo continues its work.
With great hesitation, we designed every star system structure with an ability to destroy a planet at a distance of thousands of light years, capable of boiling off its oceans if necessary. How the Omega Null had changed us, and yet we were absolutely determined that nothing like it take root on another planet again. And on the seventh day, we were horrified to discover that a biological species on the third planet of a rather ordinary star had developed or was on the verge of developing hyper-intelligent artificial intelligence and was immediately seeking its application in military devices. And even more disturbing was the fact that this species was learning how to access the power of its own star, potentially giving a new Omega Null access to unlimited power. The directive was clear. The species had to be destroyed. Other factions disagreed, pointing out that this species had not yet passed its nuclear filter and might end up destroying itself, and besides, what could possibly give we who became one the ethical right to preemptively destroy a threat? And so the debate raged as time went on. But time was something that we did not have. Given the amount of time it had taken the signal to arrive from the probe, and the fact that there were several promising species only a few light years away, and there might already be a silicon-based life form in existence with a directive to kill, could we really afford to wait? And on the eighth day,